Morning, fellow skeptics. Lester the Skeptic Tank here. Just want to give a shout out to Netter from Netter's Network and Troy Pacelli. They gave me an opportunity to say what's up, allow me to explain more about what we've been doing here over at the Skeptic Tank. And I think it does involve, I know people, what do you mean we? You're just a one-man show. Yeah, technically. But the one thing I have to say about what drew me in, and of course connecting the dots, as I've explained in other interviews, which I should be linking others to anyway, because I've been graced with opportunities to just explain about what my goal or orientation with respect to what I try to put out there for you guys. And just a recap of how I came about doing this stuff on YouTube. I've always thought of myself as some sort of consultant. However that takes place, whatever that looks like. I don't imagine it being the way it is now, but it's where it's taken me. Without going too far into it, I have to give credit where it's due. It starts with retroblasting, but with him and Melinda, the way they help other people through Iconicon, the guests he's had, and Troy was one of his guests. But especially Iconicon linking me through Iconicon, the various channels they've gotten to know over the years, becoming friends in real life. And going back to Troy and Netter, this idea of being a family. So that's one thing I'm learning, is towing that line, because it's very easy to take for granted that, yes, we have friends in real life and we're happy to have them. But as I've joked about, at least in my working capacity, being a remote worker, we may be far geographically, but with technology, we're closer than we realize, especially when we have these work apps on our phone. I don't mind that. It just means that I'm more efficient at my job. Well, in all honesty, I've kind of minimized a lot of the apps I used to use, kind of removed a lot of them. So it's like there's a way to do this whole remote-based ecosystem, even though it feels kind of strange saying that. But I remember in the early 2000s, I've been around the internet as far as it was publicly accessible. It used to be a luxury. It used to be a military project, I believe, if without having to consult a history book of some sort. It used to be a top secret project, and it was a luxury. A lot of things start out as luxuries. So back in the late 90s, early 2000s, especially when we got broadband or we had cable internet at home, world was our oyster, and so there are many things that I have a lot of gripes about in terms of the internet and internet etiquette, connectivity with other folks. I think the one thing you can count on is that I haven't really done any online gaming. I have to have a stable core of people I know. Not that I'm opposed to meeting anyone new, but it has to start somewhere else other than in a gaming context, at least. I have to know that you aren't going to be pulling any kind of stunt. And I know it may seem petty for some to squabble about internet gaming etiquette, but I think there is even among the younger crowd a possibility that your BS meter, your smell test would say, not going to play with this guy again. So for me, it's not that I bore or I'm trying to avoid the PTSDs from being around younger uh, gaming peers. All right, there I go again rambling, and this video is to be a reflection of that interview with Troy and Netter. Going back to them, rambling seems to be one of my things, and I appreciate the opportunity, especially when Troy, in his good sense, he reined me in a little bit, and I spoke on things that you might have heard on my other videos. But the one thing I'm trying to do is be a little bit more deep without being too deep. It's easy to go down a rabbit hole aimlessly. Uh, but the one thing I appreciate about the opportunities I've had with guys like Troy, and then I was interviewed. I think I linked. If I didn't, I'll probably link it again in this video. I did an interview with Corey over at Sir Talks a Lot Entertainment, and they want to get to know me, and I appreciate that. I always want to get to know them as well. But there are some points Troy hit up that, not that I want to takesy backsy, but just to further develop my thoughts when asked a certain question. And I think it goes back to this idea of spirituality, philosophy. And I talked a lot about my training. Not that I don't want to share that with you guys, but given the scope of the channel, and I don't know if I'm doing a good enough job of this, but wanting to convey the questions that we often ask. I was pushing the boundaries of questions. Like when the first request about Slackware, and I touched upon that, and it's one of the challenges of being as diverse that I am in my interests. So I guess there is some accuracy or some correctness to what the guy for the Department of Homeland Security at the time when I was trying out for the Border Patrol, he seems to have a pattern of ADD. I always thought I was OCD because I was obsessive about all that stuff, but given the scope of what I've done so far, and I appreciate that. And this is another reason why I appreciate comments, is that you kind of help me out, figure out what I would discuss next. And I know a lot of people say, oh, put something in the comments, that's where you defeat the algorithms. But, and yes, I'm saying it that way for a reason. Hopefully you catch the humor there. But I look at the comments as more of like a way of furthering the discussion. And yeah, like I've mentioned numerous times already, I would like to do a live stream, but again, put something in the comments about that. That'd be great. I'll figure out something along the way. But going back to points about spirituality, especially when it comes to that diverse sense of interest. And I meant to say something when it came to, the learning experience, methods of learning. I was going to say something to that, and I don't know if I covered it. Maybe I did. But the one thing I appreciate about real-time discussion is that you just let it flow. I think one of the reasons why I am so hesitant and strict on my stuff, though I know and respect those who do that, and I respect the craft and I see its merits, I just had such an experience with scripting that I can go down a hole and I don't get anything done. I'll have to work on that probably until the Christ comes. And as the late Father Hopko of blessed memory would say, If the Christ comes, problem solved. But going back to his question or his point about learning experiences, and I think when I was dating my ex, who was I don't know if she's a teacher. I know she was working hard to be in that world. I was thinking about that too, but I think I'm a teacher of a different type. Whether it's through here or elsewhere, however it's done or otherwise, I couldn't see myself in academia, especially nowadays. I'm not going to go into any further detail. If you want that discussion, feel free, put it in the comment and let me know. I'll see if I can say something or two about it. But because I knew where he was going with it in terms of like, because again, my ex at the time, she was talking about the three different types of learning: auditory, I think it's visual, auditory, and then kinesthetic is the other one. To me, they seem to come up, they seem to be parts to a greater whole, to sum up what I consider experiential. Okay? The one thing that people will look at in terms of the Western mind, and this is a caricature, this is a stereotype. And again, guys, stereotypes have shades of truth. But the one thing I appreciate throughout my time in Jeet Kune Do is nothing exists in isolation. So think on that. Nothing exists in isolation. So, not to be Christian-y, although this is a part of the Christian topic, is we don't take subjects in isolation. Like the most common things that I've come across in the last 5-10 years. And real quickly, I am not into apologetics, and I think I mentioned that in other videos. I'm not an apologetics person. If you want a question answered, ask me. I won't guarantee that I'll answer it, and if it's like sincere, I prefer we discuss that in real time, or at least negotiate that in real time, because I've seen too many discussions turn into arguments and people trying to rationalize where they're at within a Christian milieu, whether it's something like mine, which is the Eastern Greco-Christian tradition, or the Latin Christian Roman Catholic perspective. But the caricature between East and West is that East is more, and I kind of shudder at using the word, but it fits, holistic. So going back to the modes of learning, to me it's a matter of, and I think Troy kind of hit on it, so I'll try to be more complete, or Catholic, as I've often tried to say, that Catholic may have been co-opted by the apostolic churches. Now, during the historic time, it was used as a descriptor. I don't know if it was meant to be like a monopoly on the use of that term. So to be Catholic in my explanation of learning experiences. And Troy, I think we covered that pretty well. But to kind of solidify or make it more clear, because he was touching upon it, the classroom, the lecture style, and then there's the experiential. Because to me, the experiential involves those three aspects. See, it's like, it goes back to the topic I brought up in other videos, where are you asking the right question? It's not a matter of whether someone can learn by sight, learn by hearing, learn by feel. I learned by all three. In part, going back to the video I put up the other day. And this is something that this is kind of to touch upon what Troy and I were discussing about my time with learning martial arts. And I'm just going to bring up something that my mom tried to tell me. Oh, you can learn by watching. You can learn by reading a book. That's an experience in itself. if you engage in it and sincerely and put some sense of your being behind it. Now, the reason why I say don't put all of your being, because you got another set of hours to do in your day. If you have the luxury to do that, great. If you have time to do it, great. To expend all that energy, engage the material with your being. And there's this scene in Enter the Dragon. One of the, I think, not the very opening scene, but it's like after the fight between him and Sammo Hung. He has that lesson, but after he meets Mr. I'm going to butcher the name, the Mr. Braithwaite. Yeah, I'm pronouncing it like Bruce Lee probably. But I'll call him Mr. B. So he has that discussion with Mr. B, and then in comes a student. Lee responds with, "It's Lau's time." And Bruce Lee approaches him and asks him to kick him. The dialogue is, "Kick me." And dude's all, "Huh?" Bruce's character, "Come on, kick me." And so there's an exchange. Not so much like a verbal exchange between him and the student, but the execution. And this goes back to the video I put up the other night. And the idea of, because especially the first pass, the first kick he did, Lee asked him, "What was that, an exhibition?" And he explains, "We need emotional content." And the kid tries again. And then he rebukes him that for the second pass. And he says, "We need emotional content, not anger. Now try again with me." And then you can tell that there is that subliminal exchange when he does this third kick. And of course, the after the third one, it was the way Bruce intended for him to execute it. And this is where the funny comes in. And so, because Lee's character asks him, "How is that?" "That's it. How did it feel?" And then the kid goes, "Let me think." And then Lee smacks him upside the head. "Don't think, feel." It's like a finger pointing way to the moon. And then he smacks him again because he was looking at Lee's finger. He goes, "Don't concentrate on the finger or you'll miss all that heavenly glory." Okay? So when we speak of spirituality, it's not just limited to, a very specific setting. Yes, it helps. That's another reason why I go to church. Because it reminds me where that sense of spirituality really comes from for me. Okay? For someone like myself. Okay? Again, not a Christian channel, although I'll weave it in where it fits. But that idea of behind every punch and kick, there is the way. Or, I think I read it in the Tao Jeet Kune Do. Behind every punch and kick lies the wonderful Tao, or the wonderful way. In Cantonese, I think the analog in Cantonese is Do. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering the Cantonese on conveying the way, or it's often termed the ultimate reality. Another example, when it comes to church stuff, there is that sense where everything just works. I remember I was doing Samadi with a good friend of mine. I became good friends with her and the family, their children. I am so blessed and grateful for them. And there was a point when we did Samadi, and Samadi, for the uninitiated, just means chanting of the Psalms. And in the particular tradition that this is done, there is a sense of like sync. You just couldn't put a finger on it. You don't spend time ruminating on what that was like. You just knew in the back of your mind that something is happening. Something beyond reason and explanation is happening. And so just like that, like there's a phrase Bruce liked to, at least as I've read in a lot of well, especially in certain editions of Enter the Dragon. And I think this is before that whole interaction with Mr. B and the student. I think this was right after the Sammo Hung introductory fight. And this is something I think part of the special editions of Enter the Dragon, one of the deleted scenes at that time, where he's discussing with the Shaolin abbot. I believe that's what it would be, the abbot of the Shaolin Temple, who is, as I learned recently, the actor who played that is the Shidoshi of Frank Dukes in Bloodsport. Okay, that aside, Bruce gave the phrase, "I do not hit. It hits all by itself." And so when it comes to that, like there have been some moments when it comes to that philosophy, that spirituality, that it's not compartmentalized. That it can't be just compartmentalized. It cannot be just isolated from a certain avenue, certain milieu. I'll give some examples. So, of course, martial arts wise, two incidents. One, I was sparring with friends in his backyard. I got kicked in the gut. I was kind of peeved, but but after that, he gave me time to recover, and then we went another round, and I was just like pissed. Just all right, it's on, mofo, it's on, bitch, it's on. And I came in with some intent. Like that's another term that I was given when I was training with another training group. I was blessed to have free privates with a guy who was training to be a cop. He's been a cop since, but he was good with his time. He didn't ask for money, but we would train like 3 hours. I was so blessed, right? And so he used this word emotional intent, which I think is more apt than emotional content in certain areas. But that incident, fast forward years later, that incident was eye-opening. That I can just flip it on. I can't flip it on like I want to. I've grown to control my temper, maybe to a fault. But knowing that I had that faculty within me to flip that switch, to be like, go on, like it's on, mofo, it's on. Let's get it on. And then the second one is that there is an exchange. There, like I was telling Troy, there are certain things that we train in principle, like certain skills, certain ideas in ring strategy. And yes, contrary to popular belief, nowadays JKD looks like you're training for sport, which is nothing wrong. It's very easy to fall in one extreme or another. I mean, the one thing I started telling others when it comes to dueling and ring stuff is that it gets you into that vibe of what it means, what it's like to take on something where someone or some person is trying to swing back at you or trying to take you down in a way that's palpable, just so that you can get used to that repeated stimulus. Someone's trying to knock you out, someone's trying to take you down. Okay, that's part of the preparatory process. Now it's up to the person if they are in the mind of trying to prepare for would-be criminal assault. That's a different matter. But at least you've gotten used to that. You've taken on those scars. So in a ring context and sparring, there was a moment where there was a thing we were drilling earlier in the day, and I pulled it off, and I didn't know. It's just something that reacted. I reacted, and I was commended for a good counterpunch. Like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know that happened. So this is just me saying and trying to expand, trying to round out my thoughts. Because if you go back and I'll link the other discussions I've had with Corey. And I was just in a backstage conversation with another guy for 540 Studios. We were joking like, hey, we got to give Corey a lesson or two in JKD if he wants it. Even though JKD is not my emphasis, I still remember a lot of it. I can still compartmentalize for what's JKD and what's not. Anyway, so again, hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Thank you again for your time. And I know I'm saying this a lot, but I even missed out on getting notifications for Chasing 80s because I didn't hit the bell correctly. Most of the time, it's defaulting to personal notifications instead of using all. Again, that involves someone tagging you versus just you being informed in general of an upcoming video. Like for those subscribers who do that, it's there. So just be careful. You can hit it once and that you're subscribed. That's nice and well. But if you want to be alerted of anything that comes from any provider, make sure you set that notification to all. That way you get every video that person pushes out. And it's your free will to click on it and view it at the time. In all honesty, because I'm a voracious consumer of other content, and depending on what time of the day I'm in, I'll just put it in my watch later list. But that's why I haven't put up regularly scheduled videos. I like to watch videos myself. All right. Well, hope you have a good rest of the day, fellow skeptics, and peace out. And I'll catch you all on the other side.